I want to start with the grocery store, because that is where it happened and because grocery stores are specific in the way that ordinary places become extraordinary when something shatters inside them. Tuesday morning, 8:47. I had a basket with the usual things: coffee, eggs, the specific brand of oat milk my daughter preferred, a bunch of cilantro for the soup I was making that evening. I had been married to Roland for 11 years. I was 35 years old. I was, by every external measure, a woman whose life was in order. I pressed my card at the terminal. Declined. I stood at that terminal for a long moment. I checked my phone. Our joint account showed a balance of 0. Our second joint account, the savings we had built over 11 years, showed a balance of 0. I put the basket down. I walked out of the grocery store. I sat in my car. My name is Celestine. And I am going to be precise about what I felt in that car, because precision is how this story gets told correctly. I was not panicked. I was cold. There is a difference between panic and the specific cold that arrives when you understand that something has been done deliberately, by a person who had access to your trust, and that the coldness you feel is your body's way of telling you that your instincts had been correct for longer than you admitted. I had been feeling something shift in Roland for 4 months. Nothing I could name concretely, a quality of distance, a deliberateness in how he moved around me, certain conversations that ended too smoothly. I had told myself I was tired, that marriage had its seasons, that the busyness of his growing consultancy was pulling his attention somewhere neutral. I called the bank. Confirmed what I already knew. Both joint accounts had been emptied and my name removed. The transactions had processed at 11:58 p.m. the previous night. 1 minute before midnight. I sat in that car for 6 minutes. Then I called my attorney. She had been on retainer for 2 years, not because I expected this, but because I was a woman who believed in having things in place before they were needed. That belief was about to matter enormously. Before I tell you what I did next, I need to tell you what Roland had actually done, because the scope of it is important. Roland Darius Finch was 42 years old. A management consultant with a client roster that had grown from 3 clients in our first year of marriage to 41 clients by year 11. Handsome in the way of men who have always known their competence is their most attractive quality, lean and precise, with the particular confidence of someone who has built something real and knows it. What he had built, specifically, was a consultancy whose growth I had supported from the ground up. Not as an employee. As his wife, which in a marriage like ours meant something specific. I had managed our household in the years when managing the household was the thing that made space for him to build the business. I had entertained clients. I had proofread proposals. I had been the person who could be trusted to represent him correctly in rooms where he could not be present. And for the past 3 years, I had been a formal signatory on his major contracts. This had happened gradually, first, because a client had required 2 authorized signatures on a significant engagement agreement, and Roland had listed me as a partner. Then, because other clients, seeing that arrangement, had requested the same. Then, because our attorney had suggested the structure formalize the partnership for liability purposes. 41 clients. Major contracts for 11 of them required my signature. I had not been aware, sitting in that grocery store parking lot, of the significance of that fact yet. But Roland had been aware. Roland had been aware of it for months and had spent those months attempting to quietly remove my name from every financial instrument that belonged to us, the accounts, the investment portfolio, the emergency fund, before initiating the divorce conversation he had not yet had with me. What he had failed to account for was my attorney. Miriam Oseasanti was 53 years old, Ghanaian-American, and had been doing family law for 27 years. She had seen this exact pattern before, the midnight account draining, the quiet asset removal, and she had, when I called her from the parking lot, a specific and complete response prepared. "Come to my office," she said. Now. I drove directly there. Are you enjoying the story so far? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because trust me, there's a lot more story to be told. Without wasting much time, let's continue. Miriam's office was on the third floor of a building where the carpet communicated seriousness, and the receptionist had the bearing of someone who had seen every kind of marital crisis and responded to all of them with the same calm efficiency. Miriam herself was a woman who had never once, in the 2 years I had been her client, wasted a single word. She was compact and upright, with close-cropped silver natural hair and reading glasses she pushed to the top of her head when she was thinking and pulled down to her nose when she was reading. She had been recommended to me by a colleague who had said simply, "If something ever happens, call Miriam first and cry later." I had not cried yet. I did not cry in Miriam's office. I presented the facts clearly, the accounts, the timing, the zero balances, and she listened without interrupting, her glasses on her nose, making notes in the specific shorthand she'd developed over 27 years. When I finished, she said, "The contracts." "I'm sorry," I said. "You are a named signatory on multiple active client contracts," she said. "That status was not removed when the accounts were drained because it cannot be removed unilaterally. It requires the consent of the contracting parties, the clients." I sat with this for a moment. "He doesn't know that," I said. "He likely does not know the specific implications," Miriam said. "Men who drain accounts at midnight tend to be thinking about the money, not the operational infrastructure." "What happens to the contracts?" I said. "Nothing yet," she said. "They remain valid. Your signature remains valid. You remain a necessary party to any amendments, renewals, or disputes under those contracts." She looked at me over her glasses. "Which means that until those clients are notified of a change in the partnership structure, a notification that requires your consent, you have standing." "Standing to do what?" I said. "Standing to be present," she said. "Standing to be informed. Standing to exercise your rights as a signatory." She paused. "And standing to withdraw your signature at any point, with 30 days' notice, as stipulated in most standard engagement agreements." I looked at her. "He built his business on contracts that need my name," I said. "Yes," she said. "And he removed your name from every account without removing it from a single contract." The irony of that, of Roland's meticulousness, missing the one thing that mattered most, sat between us for a moment. "What do I do?" I said. Miriam smiled. "Rare, precise, entirely controlled. We wait for him to come to you," she said. "And he will." Roland came home on Tuesday evening as if Tuesday were an ordinary evening. This was its own information, the specific ease of a man who believed he had executed a plan and had not yet received the news that the plan had a gap in it. He made dinner. Or he attempted to make dinner, pasta from a box, which was what Roland made when he was either distracted or performing normalcy. I sat at the kitchen table and I watched him perform normalcy, and I felt something I want to name accurately. Not anger. Architecture. The specific feeling of a woman who is watching someone else move pieces around a board without understanding that the most important piece has already been moved by her. He said, "We should talk." "Yes," I said. He sat across from me. "I've been thinking about us," he said. "About where we are." "Tell me," I said. What followed was the conversation men have when they have already made decisions and are presenting them as discussions. He talked about growing apart, about the pressure of the business, about feeling like they had become different people. He did not mention the accounts. He did not mention the midnight transactions. He spoke as if the financial arrangement he had executed while I slept was simply one component of a mutual transition he was now announcing. I listened to all of it without interrupting. When he finished, I said, "When did you intend to tell me about the accounts?" The shift in his face was immediate and specific, not guilt, exactly, but the recalibration of a man who has had his assumption of control removed. "The accounts are," he started, "were emptied at 11:58 p.m. last night," I said. "Both joint accounts. My name removed. I discovered this at the grocery store this morning." He said nothing. "I've already spoken with Miriam," I said. He went very still. "She has some questions about the contracts," I said. "Specifically the 11 major client contracts that require my signature. She wants to ensure I understand my rights as a named signatory before any transition discussions begin." Roland's face did something I had never seen it do before. It lost its architecture. The precision that had always been his defining quality simply left his expression. "Those contracts," he said. Still have my name on them, I said. Yes. I want to be clear about what I did next, because I think it matters that it was not revenge. It was not a weapon. It was a woman exercising the legal rights she had held for 3 years without fully understanding their weight. Miriam walked me through the process carefully. The standard engagement agreements Roland had used with his 11 major clients contained a partnership withdrawal clause if either named signatory withdrew from the partnership. The client had the right to renegotiate the terms of the engagement or exit without penalty. My withdrawal would not automatically void the contracts, but it would trigger a clause that required Roland to notify each of the 11 clients of the structural change, a notification that would, given the size and significance of those engagements, prompt questions about the stability of the consultancy. 11 clients, Miriam said. What do you know about them? I knew a great deal. I had entertained these clients. I had attended their dinners, remembered their spouses' names, sent Christmas gifts to the right addresses. 3 of them had signed specifically because they trusted the partnership structure, had said so directly at signing events I had attended. 3 of them signed because of me, I said. Or because of us. The partnership. That's useful to know, Miriam said. I filed the withdrawal notice for 5 of the 11 contracts, the ones where my participation was most central, where the clients knew me well enough to notice my absence, where the questions my withdrawal triggered would be most significant. I filed with 30 days' notice as required. I sent Roland a copy through Miriam. He called me 40 minutes after he received it. You can't do this, he said. I already did, I said. The filing is complete and the 30-day clock has started. Celestine. Roland, I said. You removed my name from every account we built together. Overnight. Without speaking to me. You did not think about the contracts because you thought the contracts were just paper. They were never just paper. A silence. What do you want, he said. What I want, I said, is a fair accounting of 11 years. Not more than that. Just the accurate number. The first client call came 3 days after the withdrawal filing. His name was Arthur Pemberton, 61, the founder of a mid-sized logistics company, the kind of client Roland had described as his cornerstone account. Arthur had met me 4 times. He had sent flowers when our daughter was born. He called me Celestine without prompting and remembered that I preferred tea to coffee. He called my personal cell. I've received notice of a change in your partnership, he said. I wanted to call you directly. Thank you, Arthur, I said. I appreciate that. Is everything all right? We're navigating some changes, I said. I wanted to ensure you were informed correctly rather than receiving only one version. A pause. Arthur was a careful man, the kind of careful that had built a logistics company over 30 years. I see, he said. I'll be honest with you, Celestine. When we signed with Roland, the partnership structure was a significant part of the decision. Your involvement it communicated something about the stability of the arrangement. I understand, I said. Is your involvement changing? I thought about what to say and how to say it. That depends, I said, on whether the partnership structure that was represented to you at signing continues to reflect reality. Another pause. Longer this time. I'll need to speak with our legal team, he said. And I'll want to schedule a conversation with Roland before the 30 days is up. Of course, I said. I hope you'll remember that my 30-day notice was a professional obligation, not a reflection of my regard for you and your company. Of course, he said. 3 more clients called within the week. All of them had heard the same things. All of them had questions. 2 of them had the same question Arthur had. Was the partnership stability that had been represented to them at signing still accurate? Roland's assistant called me on day 8. Roland did not call himself. Mr. Finch would like to schedule a conversation, she said. Tell Mr. Finch, I said, to have Miriam call my Miriam. Miriam and Roland's attorney, a man named Gregory, who had the specific energy of someone accustomed to winning and was not enjoying the current situation, sat across from each other in a conference room I had never been to before, but that felt immediately familiar because it had the same carpet as every room where power is formally redistributed. I sat beside Miriam. Roland sat beside Gregory. We had not been in the same room since the Tuesday kitchen conversation. He looked tired. Not the tiredness of grief, the tiredness of a man who has been managing consequences he had not fully modeled. 2 of the 5 clients had already requested meetings to review their engagement terms. One had indicated through its legal team that it was considering activating the withdrawal clause on their side. Roland looked at me across the table. I looked back at him without expression. Gregory laid out Roland's proposal, a financial settlement structured around what Roland characterized as the fair market value of my contribution to the household during the marriage. Miriam set her pen down. That framing, she said, in the specific tone she used when she was about to dismantle something carefully, does not account for several things. It does not account for the 11 years of professional representation and client relationship maintenance my client provided. It does not account for the 3 years of formal signatory status on contracts that contributed materially to the consultancy's growth and client retention. And it does not account for the overnight removal of my client's name from joint financial accounts without notice or consent, which in this state constitutes financial abuse of a marital partner. Gregory looked at his notes. The financial abuse claim, he started, is documented, Miriam said. The transaction timestamps are 11:58 p.m. We have bank records. We have the grocery store decline notification. We have the sequence. She paused. We also have the withdrawal filing, which has prompted 3 client reviews and may prompt more. The value of those contracts to the business is calculable. The damage to the consultancy of losing them is calculable. My client's signature is what made those contracts possible. That value is documentable. The room was quiet for a long time. Roland said, quietly, "What does she want?" Miriam looked at me. I answered. "Half," I said. "Of everything. Accurately valued. Including the consultancy." My daughter's name was Ava. She was 9 years old, and 9-year-olds know more than adults give them credit for, which is something every parent learns when the marriage changes and the child does not pretend not to have noticed. She came to me on the Thursday of the 2nd week after the grocery store morning. She found me at my desk reviewing documents Miriam had sent, the asset valuation request, the consultancy revenue documentation, the 3 years of contract records. She stood in the doorway. "Mama," she said, "is Dad in trouble?" I set the documents down. "Come in," I said. She sat in the chair beside my desk, the chair she always chose, the one that let her see both me and the door simultaneously, which was a quality she had developed young and that I found quietly extraordinary. "Dad seems scared," she said. I thought about how to answer this honestly and appropriately. "Dad made some decisions that have some consequences," I said. "We're working through them." "Did you make him scared?" she said. I sat with that question. 9-year-old questions deserve honest answers, not managed ones. "I made sure the consequences were accurate," I said. "That's different from making someone scared." She thought about this for a moment with the specific seriousness she brought to things she was working out. "Like when you told me there were consequences for leaving my bike out," she said. "And then it rained." "Something like that," I said. She nodded. She seemed satisfied with this. "Is our house okay?" she said. "The house is ours," I said. "It's okay." She nodded again and went back to her room. I sat at my desk for a long time afterward thinking about what she had said. "Did you make him scared?" "No. I had made the consequences accurate." Roland had made himself scared by building something on a foundation he had decided to remove without checking whether the foundation was load-bearing. It was load-bearing. It had always been load-bearing. He simply hadn't looked. The settlement took 6 weeks. Not because it was contested at every point. Roland and Gregory contested the framing of my contribution in the early sessions and then stopped contesting it when Miriam produced 3 years of contract records alongside client testimony she had collected in writing from 2 of the clients who had confirmed that my involvement had been material to their decision to sign. Arthur Pemberton wrote a letter. He had not been asked for one. He had apparently discussed the situation with his legal team and decided, of his own accord, that an accurate account of his decision-making at signing was something the record should contain. His letter stated that the partnership structure, specifically my presence as a named partner and signatory, had been central to his company's confidence in the engagement. Miriam presented it on day 22 of the negotiation. Gregory asked for a recess. The settlement that emerged from those 6 weeks was not the one Roland had proposed in the conference room. It was closer to what Miriam had called, in our first meeting after the grocery store morning, the accurate number. Half of the marital assets, properly valued. A negotiated share of the consultancy, not ownership, a financial share of its established value at the time of the separation, which reflected 3 years of growth during the period of my formal involvement. The house, which went to me, as the primary residence for Eva. Child support structured fairly. And the removal of the financial abuse documentation from the court record in exchange for Roland's agreement not to contest any of the settlement terms. The last point had been Miriam's idea. He wants this clean, she said. Give him clean in exchange for fair. I agreed. Clean was not the same as forgiven. It was simply efficient. Roland signed on a Friday afternoon. I signed on the same Friday 2 hours later in Miriam's office with Miriam beside me and a cup of tea she had made herself. How do you feel? She said. Accurate, I said. She smiled. That's the right word, she said. Here is what I want to tell you about how it ends. Because the ending is not the settlement and not the moment Roland signed the papers and not even the morning I sat on my front porch for the first time as a woman who had stopped being someone's financial footnote. The ending is the consultancy. Roland's business, the one he had built and that I had represented for 11 years, contracted significantly in the year following the separation. Not because of the withdrawal filing, though that contributed. Not because of the settlement, though that cost him capital. Mostly because the 3 clients whose retention had been partially attributable to my presence chose not to renew. Arthur Pemberton renewed for 1 year under a renegotiated contract and then moved to a different firm. 2 others left within 6 months. 41 clients became 28. 28 became 19. I know these numbers because Eva still saw her father every other weekend, and I was not the kind of woman who used her daughter as an instrument of surveillance, but I was the kind of woman who paid attention to what her daughter mentioned without prompting. I do not feel satisfaction about this. I want to be precise about that because I think it matters. Roland's business contracting is not a victory. It is simply a consequence. The consequence of building something for 11 years on a partnership you then attempted to erase at midnight and discovering that erasing the person does not erase the role they played. What I kept. The house, which Eva loves. My professional skills, I returned to work as an independent business consultant, drawing on 11 years of watching a consultancy grow from the inside. 3 of Roland's former clients, after their departures from his firm, contacted me directly. I took on one of them. Appropriately. With full disclosure and with Miriam's counsel on the ethical dimensions. Eva is doing well. She still asks questions that reveal she understands more than seems possible for 9 years old. And Miriam. I kept Miriam on retainer. Not because I expect more crises. Because I am a woman who believes in having things in place before they are needed. I am Celestine. My name was removed from every account overnight. But they forgot the contracts. They always forget something. Moral: a person who erases you from the paperwork has not erased you from the foundation, and a foundation removed without checking whether it is load-bearing brings everything down. The end. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you for watching. I hope it stayed with you and gave you something to think about. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe and be part of the journey. There's so much more story still to come.